Good morning. Welcome to a typical Sunday morning for me. I'm in a hoodie that's got cat hair on it. I got some coffee in a Star Wars mug, and I have a sketchbook. So this video is going to be a little bit different. I thought it would be really nice to have a reflective moment and go back and look at some old ideas and old sketchbooks. I thought I'd bring you guys along with me and reflect with me. Or really bring you along the reflection journey. I think it's really important to have these moments of reflection. And I do think it's really important to save your sketchbooks. Because it's really great in those days and those moments when you're just like, I don't know what to do. I don't have any ideas. I don't really feel like being creative. And sometimes if you at least just force yourself to sit down and look back at some old processes you've done, old notes you've taken, maybe it could trigger and spark a rebirth of a new idea or a rebirth of an old idea. Because I think every idea is worth exploring. Sometimes it's really about timing. So I wanted to record this video in a very organic way, bring you guys in on a typical Sunday morning. I'm not going to edit this very much. So yeah, this is just going to be you and me. Welcome. So sketchbooks. I have about 12 or so sketchbooks. Maybe more, because I have a couple like small ones. But in terms of like full-size, large sketchbooks, I think about 10 to 12. Most of my sketchbooks are from my university years. And a lot of them are not super focused. Like I would say there's probably a handful that are probably like one class, but most of them are multiple classworks, multiple different things, or just like random things that I wanted to do a study or wanted to explore something, or probably like a tattoo idea or something random. I always want to fill sketchbooks, so I'm not opposed to like letting a sketchbook be a certain theme or anything like that. They are books of just collections of my thoughts and references and ideas and sketches and exploration. So I picked a sketchbook at random, and I normally am pretty good at labeling my sketchbooks. This one though just has my name on it, and all I know it's a colored pencil sketchbook, which by the looks of it, yeah, I don't think I did much colored pencil in here. I don't remember which one this is. So we're going to find out together, and we're going to go down memory lane together. So let's dive in. All right. This is definitely, or at least so far, just a single class sketchbook. Syllabus right on the front cover. What class was this? So I went and did my undergraduate studies at two different schools. I started at community college at Raritan Valley Community College in New Jersey, and then I transferred and completed my undergrad at Rutgers Newark, also New Jersey. This looks like it was from, this definitely was Rutgers. My painting 2 class with Jordan Castile. If you don't know who Jordan Castile is, please Google her. She is, she was a fantastic professor, but she's also just an acclaimed artist. And I feel honored to have been able to be a student of hers. She held such a high standard for her students. And I think that that level of respect that she shared with us for this profession was monumental. such an inspiration. Little bit about, now that I know this is about that class, some special things about that class that we might see in the sketchbook. Now it's starting to come back a little bit. This was a class, first of its kind for me, where the class time was not actually when you were doing your art. It was expected to do your art and your work outside of class in your studio time. The class time was meant for exercises, collaborating with your other colleagues and other artists in the classroom, researching, doing different studies. It was pretty rare that we had like open time to just continue our pieces. Another key thing I remember was actually the sketchbook. So I'm so glad that I picked this one at random, because I think this is a great sketchbook to share with you guys, especially for a first like sketchbook chat video like this. The sketchbook was an important part of the class. It was kind of like the artist's Bible. We had to document everything in our sketchbook, and we had weekly sketchbook reviews. We're probably going to see notes and feedback and see my grades on this as we go. And the theme of the class was structured around a project, a singular semester-long series project. We had to create somewhere between 8 to 10 pieces, and they had to be like a collection of works. That was very hard. That was the first time I ever had a class where it was really up to you as the student, as the artist, to create and structure your planning. And all you were told is like, okay, you need X amount of pieces by X date, and the rest was really fluid. Scale was also up to us. It could be as big or as small as we wanted. But there had to be, of course, a conceptual value for why scale is being used that way, right? Because scale is an important part of, your design principles, the elements of art. So it's part of the formula. So there had to be a rhyme and reason. We couldn't just make 10 by 10s and call it a day. Cool. So let's dive in. Right here on the cover, I'm starting to get in some of the process of what I wanted to do. When I found out that this class was focused around a singular series of work, I was really excited, because I knew what I wanted to do automatically. A theme of mine is exploring science and science topics through art and design. And the title of the series is Project Specimen. I knew it immediately when I knew what this project was going to be about. I wanted to explore the macro-micro world of our connected place within the universe. And I knew what mediums I wanted to work with. I definitely wanted to incorporate, at least. In the end, I do remember working with a lot of different materials, but I knew a crux of my material was going to be acrylic skins. And so I did a small sampling here of acrylic skins. And if you're not sure, or if you never heard of acrylic skins, essentially it's just dried paint, dried acrylic paint. Acrylic paint is essentially like a plastic. And once it's dry, if it's dried on the right material, you can actually just peel it right off. One of my go-to materials to do a pour on, which is essentially you create your little acrylic puddle and let it dry. I always used the wrapping of a stretched canvas. Like that plastic wrapping of a brand new canvas comes in. If you're very careful, you don't puncture that. The tightness of that wrapping is perfect to do a pour and then to just peel it right off. And I liked those because I had a couple large, like 24-inch by 36-inch new unopened canvases. And so that was a good amount of surface area to do a good pour on. You could also use things like trash bags, Ziploc bags, depending like what size you were pouring. You could also pour on glass. Anything that has like a very slick surface is great for pulling these off. They have to be completely dry though. And it's super satisfying when you actually pull them off. But these are a couple samples. And I think I'm exploring a couple of different things. I'm looking at front and back. The front is, what I really mean by front and back is like bottom and top. So the part that's actually touching whatever surface I poured it on, and then the top cured surface. So there is a different texture to both. The surface that is actually touching the surface is much smoother than the top often. So I don't know if you could see that texture. And there's also two different kinds. I believe, I don't think I actually wrote it in here, but I believe one is like a gloss pouring medium, and the other one, this one, is a matte pouring medium. And I think overall I really leaned on the matte pour medium. I really liked the finish. I liked how the pigments looked when it dried. And I also liked the bottom or the back side of the pores as well. What's cool about the bottom to top or front to back is the way the pigment settles in the puddle as it's drying. The bottom has a different pattern than the top. So when you're working with dried paint and like thinking to collage with dried paint, you can use either side. So it was a very interesting process, and I discovered this process and just wanted to scale that. I just wanted to do it on a larger scale and see how far this type of medium and process could go. Essentially working with paint more like a three-dimensional sculptural medium and really manipulating its intention. Yeah, so let's dive in. Let's see what else is in here. Wow. Okay. So I remember this day. We were given, actually, I think like the whole class time. And if anyone's watching and you have not taken an art studio class yet or plan to, they're long classes. Studio classes are akin to like a lab class. They could be 3 hours, sometimes 6 hours long, depending how many times you meet a week. This I think was a 3.5 hour class, pushing 4 hours. So we had the whole time to think about and sketch and plan our pieces for the series. We had to consider all 10. 10 was the max. We could have done more, but we were being evaluated on 8 to 10. I think I ended up making 8. And first one I thought about doing is a human iris. So that's what we're seeing here on this left side. Fun fact about me. I have a theme of working with irises, human irises. I just think they're so fascinating. I just think like the textures of the iris, symbolically what it represents, and the way I view it, it's like the eyes are one of the most important parts of humans. I think it's how we trust each other. It's how we connect with each other. These portals in our heads, these like really cool muscles that everyone has a unique pattern of. It's the fingerprint of the head. I always thought that they were so cool and so fascinating. And I loved how the textures of irises too can be found in so many other kinds of natural, organic places. So I'm not surprised to see that that is the first one I really did start to draw. Next up, I was looking at skin. I thought, okay, what could be kind of cool about skin? And I'm really thinking, I did different isometric views of these. I really was thinking about texture at this stage too, how I wanted them to like sculpturally come off the canvas in relief. Here's one of hair. Hair is an interesting one. If you ever like look up microscopic view of like strands of hair, they're not as smooth as you think. They are kind of craggly. And to imagine them three-dimensionally and then blow up the scale like that, it does kind of look like tree trunks. It doesn't quite look like hair. It's more representative of other things in the natural world. And I think that in and of itself, as like a meta thought, is really cool. And I was really excited to explore that in this project. It's a lot of text. We had time where we had to journal, and we had to really like write down our thoughts. And I remember this being really important process. Over here though, it looks like this is really where I'm starting to think about overall the series. How was I going to present it? Logistically, what is it going on? What is the substrate? Am I going to use canvas? Am I not? So what I ended up doing and deciding on is doing a series of diptychs. So, but except they're not one of the same. They are a square and a circle duo. And the idea was that a square and a circle would be paired together. So that would be the diptych part. They would be in relation to one another. So essentially it would be a set of 4 to 5 with 8 to 10 being the total amount within the pieces, but there would be paired in relationships. The flat squares were going to be the two-dimensional representation of the specimen. So like if you were to take a piece of a specimen and put it on a little slide to prepare for a microscope, it's like a little square that you focus on a disc or on a plate. So I thought that would be perfect for the first one. So in the example of skin here, taking a slice of flesh or flesh in general and representing that. And then the circle partner to it would be, once you put that little specimen on its slide and you put it in, you look at it through the microscope, that circular view of the microscopic is what the textured relief would be. So taking that microscopic visual and texture and then scaling it up to a life-size equal scale to the specimen slide would be like transporting you into that microscopic world, bringing it to our scale. And I thought that would be an interesting relationship and also an interesting play on medium. And I did not do canvas, mainly for economical reasons. I was a broke student. So I ended up doing 1/4-inch MDF boards. They were easy to cut, easy to get. And yeah. Let's keep going. Ooh, okay, so I got a lot of paste-ins, but I missed a page. Let's see here. There's a little note here. September 14th, 2018. 4 years ago is when I had this class. No. Oh my God. 6 years ago, I had this class. Wow. That's crazy. Things to not forget for next class is what I wrote down. I needed a level, I needed pliers, sandpaper, board with plastic wrap on it for pouring, matte medium, wood panel cut and sanded, and prepped canvas. That's a hefty list for a next class list. That's like, we're talking days or maybe a week at most. Wow, okay. Let's take a look here. So I'm kind of going deeper into planning, deeper in other kind of mediums and materials that I want to play with. But I definitely am landing on specimen 1 is going to be a human iris. Specimen 2 is going to be skin. Specimen 3, leaves. Because I was trying to think of what would be cool what is cool to look at microscopically that would be interesting to see in like a human scale. Flowers. And 5, which I don't think I did not do. I didn't get to this one. I think I only did 8. A shell. I remember wanting to do some kind of a solid because I did like a couple biological ones like iris, skin, then organic things like leaf and flower. Like another organic material that would be interesting might be like a shell or a rock or some kind of a sediment. Didn't end up happening though. Irises, they're just so cool. Look at them. Look at these textures. And it moves. And they're all different colors. I just think it's so cool. Here's hair. You would think it's smooth, but it's not. Quite scaly. Skin was also an interesting one. These like flaps. This was bone fiber, which looks really cool and actually would have been really cool to do sculpturally, but didn't get to do that one. These over here, these like cone kind of looking dried raisin looking things. This is actually flower petals, if I'm remembering correctly. Like that velvety touch. These little cones is what makes that feel velvety. And it's so strange and weird to see it at this scale. But also so cool. I kind of miss also collaging into sketchbooks like this. I know it's not like sustainable, right? I mean, trees aren't loving this, but I think there is something to doing that, to like almost scrapbooking and orchestrating your sketchbook. Did some studies here, looks like some pretty quick studies of some irises and playing with composition, like what part of the iris would I want to focus on in that square. Painting inspiration. Ooh, artist name. Alicia Tormey, found on Instagram, Encaustic Painter. I have not looked at her work in some time. I would love to see what she's up to today. Alicia Tormey is an artist you should definitely Google. Find her on Instagram, follow her. She makes some beautiful work, I think. Yes, okay. I made a spread of artist inspiration, and most of this is Alicia's work. She is an encaustic painter. If you're unsure what encaustic medium is, it's a really old traditional medium, which is a wax medium. So it's like wax and resin and pigment. Usually they're saved in pigment bricks, like encaustic bricks, and then you melt them down on a hot plate and you work with it hot or melted. And then they kind of layer up, or you can blend them together, and then they solidify. And once they solidify, you can do a reductive process like this using clay tools or other types of tools, and you can scrape and remove to show like the other layers of wax underneath. But Alicia also does this technique. I don't know if she coined it, don't quote me on that. But she calls it like a shellac burn, where literally once if I'm remembering it right, definitely go find her website and do your own research on this too. But what I remember is once it's dry and cured, I guess, the wax, she'll put a thin layer of shellac, like what you would put on wood, onto it, and with a blowtorch or like a hand torch would burn it. And the shellac does something with the resin and pigment of the wax, and just kind of like, I don't know how to describe it besides doing this, but I guess if I bring you a little closer here to this one, it creates this like webbing, which is really interesting and almost cellular, which is why I really loved that I found her. And she also is an artist that worked both like flat like a landscape, but also sculpturally and representing more organic or biological kind of subjects. Just so interesting. These are actually like encaustic peels encased in like resin globes, which is really cool. I would love to see her work in person. There's another artist, Arthur Brothers. He's a resin artist. He does something very similar with this webbing technique. I believe it's with like alcohol or rubbing alcohol and alcohol inks, resin, and it creates these like cells. Yeah, I was just very inspired by that. Here's a little study, an oil painting study, actually. Is there anything underneath this? Oh yeah, my references. Oh yeah. And then this looks like an artist statement. And this is probably an exercise. Yeah, we had to write questions as if we were interviewing the artist. Oh, a lot of notes from, looks like different things. Lots of writing in this section. What's this? Oh, some kind of a artist bio or article. Spatial settings for surreal imagery in Venice. Interesting. Oh, here's a day where we had a crit day. These are all my my peers' notes. Oh, that's so cool. I wish people wrote their names. I actually don't, I can't tell by their handwriting who left me what. Oh yeah, this was, okay, so I remember this. So I'll tell you a little bit about how this day went. It was called like love notes, and that was like the exercise, or like the crit exercise was to, so how this class was structured, where we had our own sections or stations. So we had to claim a section of the classroom. So every time we would come into class, we would have like our area. And so we can keep our stuff in that area, and we didn't have to like break it down and waste time. And for this day, this like love note day, I remember we had to have everything out, everything we've worked on up until this point, out and open in our station. And we would leave the sketchbook page out, and the point was to go around to everyone's station and review all the open work that's there, notes, studies, works in progress, and leave some feedback. There was a structure, I just don't remember, I don't even know if it was here, but there was like, I remember like a 1, 2, 3, like 3 steps that we had to make a remark on something, leave a comment, leave a critique or something like that. Or maybe it was just like share something you love. I don't remember. But I remember it being a really great, thinking that it was a great way to do a critique. I think there's, of course, utility in putting all of your work on the wall and then having everyone stand around and talk about it. There's a time and place for that. But I do like the change up of this type of fashion of like just going and taking a look at that artist's little station and then leaving a nice love note behind. It's cool. Let's see some of the things that were said. Beautiful eye, a little creepy. It looks like this may have been from the professor, look up Marilyn Minter. I'm going to have to look that up again and remind myself what their work is like. You should Google too. You did so well capturing dimension of the iris. So clearly the one thing I had work in progress was the iris. Okay, let's take a look on what's going on this side, because I'm sure you've been staring at this the entire time. Skin. So I was working on the second specimen. This is a reference I did myself. This is chicken skin that I photographed. And anytime I photographed my own references, I had a system because contrast is something that I struggle with. I think most artists struggle with contrast. You feel like you might ruin it if you take it too far, but often you need more contrast than you think. And so what I would do is I would take a photo, I would take reference photos, and I would go into Photoshop. I would crop them into the compositions that I liked. If I definitely was doing like a reference representation thing. And then I would edit them. But for this was a top-down, just normal, lit type of image of skin. Really kind of see the surface texture of the skin. It's kind of wet. But I really wanted to have it backlit. Like it as if it was on a microscope, you know, like lit from below and I get to see through it. And I purposely like let it be foldy like this because I wanted the depth of the skin and like seeing the light come through the skin like that illuminating kind of look. And cool, yeah. This I find very helpful. It shows you the inverse and the most extreme of the contrast here, like the lights and darks, but in opposite. So it really gets you to focus on the real shapes of the composition and like really where the contrast lies. And obviously in this version it's inverse, so the lightest of lights are the darkest and the darkest parts are the lighter parts. So in comparing like your reference to this, it really helps you focus on where to keep that contrast in focus. There's one more here. Oh, okay. This is the same one as this one. I just manually increased the contrast by a lot. To also, again, this is good for color value. This is great for focusing on contrast, placement. And this is also good to just kind of enhance and drive that color, make things deeper where I want to, push things more. I just did a very quick study of the composition there. Okay, let's see what's next. Oh, okay, so this is a week that I really was getting into trying to get some stuff done. Let's see what's under here. This is the leaf. These are some plant cells. I remember what I tried to do with that. This is another reference photo I did myself too. These are leaves I found on campus, brought home. I orchestrated them on my silk screen, backlit it, photographed it. I played with a lot of different overlap, but I liked the points of overlap here and how the light was coming through, and you could really see the texture of the leaves. That's what really was getting me jazzed up about it. But what I was thinking of is what was the circular version going to be? And I really wanted to use the acrylic skins and lean into this like cytoplasm plant cell. And I wanted to create these acrylic skin pouches that were filled with other various materials like scrap paper or other scrap dried paint that could be these little like cytoplasm little parts. And it was a terrible idea because unless I was going to hire someone to help me, there was no way I was making enough little plastic paint pouches to have enough to fill this canvas. As you can see, it was 23 inches by 23 inches. That's like almost 2 feet by 2 feet diameter. I would need so many, at the scale I was working at, so many acrylic skin material created to even like make, it was just like, I remember where I ended up with it. Maybe what I'll do is I'll post the before and afters, like as we're going through and seeing like these beginning parts of the specimens, I'll put the final versions here too. Or maybe I'll throw it at the end. I don't know. We'll see. I like what I did with it in the end. I think I made it work. We did go to the Brooklyn Museum. I remember that in this class. We went to go see Soul of a Nation when it was on. Yeah, we had to write something. I kind of like, I'm inspired to do more sketchbooking like this and actually like staple things in and like have these little folds, and when you come back to a sketchbook like this, it's fun to go through it. We had a visitor from Yale University come. That was a great talk. Great to like pick someone's brain who's like actively in their master's program at Yale, who Jordan Castile as an artist also studied at Yale, so she used her network and brought awesome people in. Also shared her own experiences with us too. Oh yeah, there was a cool event. We had to go to it. I'm glad we had to though, because it was really, really valuable. The Metropolitan Museum of Art did an event where it was like career night, and the graphic designers that worked at the Met were out and had a station and talked about what it's like to be a graphic designer for the Met. There was conservatives or conservatists, conservationists. I'm not sure how to say it. If I'm saying it right, I'm sorry. There were people in writing, people in all different kinds of sectors of everyone involved that makes the Met operate. Everyone was kind of had their section, and you literally would just like roam around the Met at like, it was like 7 to 10 p.m. or something, and sat on the floor and just like listened and talked and asked questions. And really cool event. I started doing a flower study. This is a watercolor study. I don't know what this is. I don't know what's going on here. Clearly I got some kind of new brush thing and I'm playing with it. I think they were brush pens because I was trying to like do some calligraphy. This doesn't look like a brush though. I don't know what that is. But I was working on a grid, and I remember this being the first flower I ever painted, and I was nervous about it because I didn't have a lot of time, right? Like a college class is like 16 weeks. So I feel like I was feeling the pressure. I was thinking about what that three-dimensional look was going to be. So those are those cones coming back. It was harder to get that extrusion than you thought. There's a lot of paper mache became a big theme in the end. When I was starting to implement, like, okay, how do I build this? How do I actually make this look more three-dimensional and volumetric? It was hard. Drying time. Something you forget about. Don't forget about drying time. Unless you have things like blow dryers and fans to help, it's a process. I was doing lots of studies of the texture of iris here because I was starting to plan for the circular version of the iris and how I wanted to focus on that. So I decided to kind of focus on like where you saw part of the pupil, and then it like the web of the iris muscle itself being the focus. I remember using cardboard ends, acrylic skins, and paper mache and various other things to get the textures I was looking for. Ah, okay. So there's a bigger gridded version of the rose I was going to do. I really like the veins of the rose, and I definitely increased saturation and contrast on this image. Nothing below it though. And then what's this? How to Be an Artist by Jerry Saltz. 33 rules to take you from clueless amateur to generational talent, or at least help you live life a little more creatively. Interesting. It looks like this might be part of like New York Times or something. Oh, it definitely was like part of the New York Times. Let's see, what's in here? Listen to the crazy voices in your head. Know what you hate. That generally I think is a good rule. Scavenge. That's a good one. I think part of being an artist is really like looking at the world around you and looking at other objects and thinking about the other functions that other objects can have and what else they could serve. Let's take a moment to talk about this one. Tell your own story and you will be interesting. Louis Bourgeois. That's an important thing, especially in today's world, all social media, it's important to not try to tell your story outside of who you are for the sake of clicks or for the sake of whatever. That stuff doesn't matter. I feel like each person is an individual. We're already different enough. We don't have to try to be like someone else to be interesting. Just being your authentic self is interesting enough. And if some people don't agree with that or make you feel otherwise, they aren't people that you need in your life at all. There are plenty of people in this world. The more you are yourself, the more you're going to find the right people for you. Just be patient. Interesting. Okay. Guggenheim. From a year after. So I must have just thrown this in here. I don't know what this is. A cityscape of some kind? A very loose gestural drawing of a cityscape. These though, let's give some focus here. I have no idea why or when I even made these thumbnails, but I am going to put a bookmark right here and come back to this, because these two in particular, there might be something to explore more here. Cool. And I don't know what that is. Clearly I was testing something. Oh, and that's it. And it's actually not complete, but almost complete. Wow, this was actually almost a complete sketchbook of one class. That's pretty rare. That's funny that this is the first one that I pulled out. Okay. Well, guys, thank you for coming on this reflective journey with me, taking a look at a random sketchbook with me, taking a trip down memory lane and hanging around to listen to the story of this class and being a student of Jordan Castile. Again, if you don't know who she is, please Google her and look at her work. She has an Art 21. Definitely watch her Art 21. She's such a hardworking artist and such an inspiration to be around, and a great personality on top of it. She was so fun. There are some great artists mentioned just throughout here of my own research and that was suggested to me go look at them all. Go find them on Instagram, because I know all of them are on Instagram. Follow them, share them with your own friends and artists. Alicia Tormey, Arthur Brothers, Marilyn Minter, of course Jordan Castile. And I just want to encourage you to sketchbook more and save your sketchbooks and plan time to sit down and go back through them and take a look at your old ideas and see what kind of triggers an emotional response, and follow that thread and see where it goes, especially on those days when you're lacking motivation and you're lacking the drive to do something creative. So thanks for spending this time with me. My coffee is cold. I'm gonna go heat this up and maybe dive into those thumbnails.
Tune in next week, yeah. It may not be me posting a video, but check out our other artists on the One Rule channel. Go subscribe.